My daughter's husband looked me dead in the eyes at the gate of my own vineyard and said, "You're not welcome here anymore, Frank." I didn't argue. I simply walked up the hill, pulled out my phone, and went live. By the time the ceremony ended, his face was on every screen in Napa Valley. And the woman he destroyed 5 years ago was standing right behind me. Thank you so much for being here. Real quick, leave a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from. I'd love to know. Just so you're aware, this story blends some fictional details for storytelling and teaching purposes. Any resemblance to actual names or locations is unintentional, but the message is valuable and worth your time. All right, back to the story. The gate was wrought iron. My grandfather Marco welded it himself in 1954, 2 years after he planted the first Cabernet vines on this hillside, with soil still under his fingernails from Sicily. I had repaired that gate twice in my lifetime, once after the earthquake of '89, and again after a delivery truck backed into it during the 2012 harvest. I knew every bolt, every hinge, every inch of rust I had sanded and repainted over 60 years of Moretti hands touching Moretti iron. Now a hired security guard stood in front of it, clipboard in hand, blocking me from my own land. "Name, please?" He was young, maybe 25. Polite enough, but firm. "Frank Moretti," I said evenly. "Father of the bride, owner of this vineyard." He scanned his list, flipped a page, scanned again. His eyes shifted. Uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, sir. Your name isn't on the guest list. Check again." He did. Same result. Behind him, through the iron bars my grandfather built, I could see white chairs arranged in rows between the Cabernet vines. 200 guests in summer linens and pastel dresses. A string quartet playing Vivaldi beneath the oak tree where I proposed to my wife 31 years ago. Flowers draped across an arbor that my own hands had constructed for the tasting room patio in 2019. My daughter's wedding. On my land. And my name wasn't on the list. "Let me handle this." The voice came from behind the guard. Smooth. Controlled. Rehearsed. Chase Kingsley stepped through the gate wearing a tuxedo that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. His hair was slicked back, his smile sharp and practiced. He placed one hand on the guard's shoulder, a gesture of authority, of ownership, and looked at me the way you look at a stray dog, lingering too close to a dinner party. "Frank," he said. "Not Mr. Moretti. Not Dad. Just Frank." Casual, dismissive. "We discussed this. Bella and I agreed. It would be best if you didn't attend. Given your recent behavior, my behavior, the accusations, the paranoia, the investigator you hired to stalk me." He waved a hand. The gesture almost bored. "We didn't want a scene. For Bella's sake. For Bella's sake." Every scraped knee I had bandaged. Every Saturday dinner I had cooked for 8 years after her mother died. Every tuition check. Every harvest we had brought in together, father and daughter, side by side in the October sun. All of it dismissed with 4 words and a wave of his manicured hand. "I need to see my daughter," I said. "That's not going to happen." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so the guard wouldn't hear. "You don't belong here anymore, Frank. This is our day. Our vineyard now. I suggest you leave before I call the sheriff. Our vineyard." The words hit like a physical blow. 45 acres my grandfather planted. 3 generations of Moretti, sweat, and sacrifice. And this man, this fraud who couldn't tell Cabernet from Merlot in a blind tasting, stood at my gate and called it his. I looked past him. Through the tasting room window, I could see her. Bella stood in the back room we had converted into a bridal suite, surrounded by bridesmaids in lavender. White lace framed her face. Her dark hair was pinned up the way Rosa used to wear hers. She laughed at something someone said, and then just briefly, she glanced toward the gate. Our eyes met. I waited for something. Recognition. confusion. For her to walk outside and ask why her father was standing on the wrong side of the fence. She held my gaze for 2 seconds. Maybe 3. Then she looked away. Deliberately, like I was a stranger she had decided not to acknowledge. Chase's hand landed on my shoulder. Not rough. Just firm. Possessive. Time to go, Frank. I shrugged his hand off. Held his gaze for a long moment. He expected anger. He expected a scene, something he could use later as proof of my instability. I gave him nothing. I understand, I said quietly. Then I turned and walked away from the gate. Not toward the parking lot. Not toward my truck. I walked up the hill, the same hill where my grandfather had first stood in 1952. Looking down at the valley below and deciding this was where his family would take root. The hill where Rosa and I had watched sunsets with cheap wine and younger bones. The hill that overlooked the entire vineyard. Every row of vines. Every guest chair. Every inch of the ceremony below. Chase watched me go. I could feel his eyes on my back. But he didn't follow. He thought I was retreating. He thought I was an old man, walking away in defeat. He was wrong. At the top of the hill, I pulled out my phone. The Napa Valley stretched golden below me in the November afternoon light. I could see everything from here. The ceremony, the guests, the arbor where my daughter would say vows to a man with 3 different names and 4.7 million reasons to marry her. Dialed, Victor Salazar, he answered on the first ring. Frank. How'd it go? He banned me at the gate. Is Diane ready? She's 5 minutes away. Pulling off the 29 now. Good. I positioned my phone on the small tripod I had carried in my jacket pocket. Angled the camera downward, capturing the full panorama of Moretti vineyards below. The white chairs. The guests. The arbor. Everything. Frank, Victor said carefully. Are you sure about this? Below me, the string quartet shifted into Pachelbel's canon. The ceremony was beginning. My daughter was about to marry a predator, and I was the only person alive who could stop it. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. I ended the call. My finger hovered over the red button on the screen. Go live. Behind me, I heard tires crunching on gravel, a car door opening, footsteps on dry earth. Then a woman's voice, steady and calm despite 12 hours of driving from Denver. Is it time? I turned. Diane Prescott stood in the golden light, her eyes fixed on the vineyard below. She was 35 years old. 5 years ago, Chase Kingsley had taken her family's ranch, her savings, and nearly her life. She had driven 700 miles through the night to stand on this hill. It's time, I said. I pressed the red button. The counter started climbing. 100 viewers. 500. 1,000. Below us. Bella walked toward the arbor on a stranger's arm, because her father wasn't allowed to walk her down the aisle. But I wasn't gone. I was right here. Watching. Broadcasting. And the truth was about to come down like a wildfire through these hills. But before I tell you what happened next on that hill, let me take you back to where this all began. To the night I made a promise I would spend 9 years keeping. To the last time I heard my wife's voice. October 14th, 2017. A Friday. The day that split my life into before and after. Rosa had been in the cellar since dawn that morning. Harvest season was always her cathedral, her sacred time. The weeks when she transformed fruit into something eternal. She had been working on a special barrel that fall, a 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon from our oldest vines, the ones my grandfather Marco planted in 1952. She called it her masterpiece. 65-year-old root systems pulling minerals from volcanic soil that hadn't been disturbed in 3 generations. This one's different, Frank, she told me that morning, her hands stained purple from sorting clusters. This one I'm making for Bella, for her wedding day, whenever that comes. I kissed her forehead. She smelled like crushed grape skins and oak. She's 22. Give her time, Rosa laughed. I'm not rushing her. I'm planning ahead. This wine needs at least 8 years in the barrel anyway. By then, she'll be ready. She sealed the barrel that afternoon, wrote something on a small card, slipped it inside an envelope, and tucked it beneath the bung cap where no one would find it unless they knew to look. I watched her do it, curious but not asking. Rosa had her rituals, her secrets with the wine. I had learned over 23 years of marriage that some things in the cellar were between her and the grapes. That evening, she drove to the Napa Valley Harvest Festival at the Silverado Resort. She went every year to support the local Growers Association, pour samples of our Moretti Reserve, and catch up with old friends from the valley. I stayed home to finish paperwork on a new irrigation system we were installing in the East Block. Bella was in San Francisco that weekend, finishing her sommelier certification at the Court of Master Sommelier. She called around 7 to tell us she had passed her introductory exam. Rosa screamed with joy on the phone. I could hear her laughing from across the kitchen. My daughter, the sommelier. Rosa said after she hung up. She'll run this place better than both of us combined. Probably already does, I said. Rosa left for the festival at 7:30. She wore a green dress I loved, the one that matched the color of our Sauvignon Blanc bottles. She kissed me at the door, quick and warm like always. Don't wait up. Margaret and I are going to close the place down. Drive safe. Always. That was the last word she ever said to me. Always. Like a promise she couldn't keep. At 9:47, my phone rang. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice. Professional and measured. Mr. Moretti, this is Officer Daniels with the California Highway Patrol. There's been an accident on Highway 29 near the Yountville Cross Road. Your wife, Rosa Moretti, has been transported to Queen of the Valley Medical Center. You need to come now. I don't remember driving. I don't remember the road, or the traffic, or parking. I remember the fluorescent lights of the emergency room, the smell of disinfectant, the squeak of my shoes on linoleum, and a doctor with gray hair and kind, exhausted eyes who met me in the hallway before I could reach her room. Mr. Moretti, I'm Dr. Anand. Your wife sustained severe traumatic injuries in a head-on collision. A truck crossed the center line near the Yountville exit. We've stabilized her, but the internal injuries are extensive. He paused. I want to be honest with you. The next few hours are critical. They let me see her at 10:30. Rosa lay in a bed that seemed too large for her small frame. Tubes threaded into her arms. Machines beeped in rhythms that would haunt my sleep for years. Her face was bruised along the left side, swollen, but still hers. Still, the woman who had taught me that wine was just love, made patient. Her eyes opened when I took her hand. They were glassy, distant, but they found me, Frank. Her voice was barely a whisper. A breath shaped into my name. I'm here, Rosa. I'm right here. Bella. She's coming. She's driving down from the city right now. Rosa squeezed my hand. The effort cost her something visible. Her jaw tightened against pain. Listen to me. Each word was deliberate, careful, rationed. The barrel. The 2017. Don't open it until Bella's wedding day. Promise me. Rosa, you're going to be fine. You'll open it yourself. Frank. Her eyes locked onto mine with a clarity that cut through the haze of medication and trauma. Promise me. Keep the vineyard. Keep Bella safe. Open the barrel on her wedding day. Not before. Promise me. I was crying. I didn't try to hide it. 31 years of marriage, and I had never once lied to this woman. I wasn't going to start now. I promise, I said. I swear it, Rosa. She smiled. Small and fading, but real. The envelope inside. It's for her. From me. So she knows I was there. Even when I wasn't. Her hand relaxed in mine. Not releasing. Just softening. like a vine letting go of its last grape at the end of harvest. Bella arrived at 11:15. She burst through the door, still in the clothes she had been wearing when she got the call. Her face was streaked with tears. She grabbed Rosa's other hand, and for a moment, the three of us were together. A family. Complete. Mom. Mom, I'm here. Rosa's eyes fluttered open one last time. She looked at Bella, and something peaceful settled across her bruised face. My sommelier, she whispered. My beautiful girl. Don't go, Mom. Please don't go. But Rosa was already fading. The machines changed their rhythm. Nurses appeared. Hands guided us gently backward. I held Bella while the monitors screamed. And the woman who had given meaning to every vine, every harvest, every sunrise over this valley for 23 years, slipped away from us. Rosa Maria Moretti died at 55. No warning. No time to prepare. Just a truck that crossed a line. And a life measured in vintages that would never be completed. That night, I stood in the cellar alone. The sealed barrel sat in the corner, still warm from the afternoon sun that had filtered through the stone walls. Rosa's handwriting on the oak stave read simply, Bella, wedding day. With all my love, 8 years. I kept that barrel sealed for 8 years. Through droughts and harvests. Through loneliness and grief. Through every Saturday dinner, I cooked alone until Bella came home to fill the empty chair. I never opened it. Not once. Not even on the nights when missing, Rosa felt like drowning, and the only comfort in the world was the smell of her cellar and the wine she had left behind. I made a promise. And I intended to keep it. Until Chase Kingsley made me realize I might never get the chance. Grief has a way of filling every room in a house. It sits in the empty chair at dinner. It lingers in the closet where her dresses still hang. It rises from the cellar like vapor every time you walk past the sealed barrel you promised never to open. But grief also has a way of being patient. It waits while you learn to survive. And surviving, in those first months after Rosa died, meant doing the next thing, the next meal, the next morning, the next row of vines that needed pruning before winter. Bella moved home the week after the funeral. She deferred her sommelier advanced certification, packed up her apartment in San Francisco, and drove back to Napa with 2 suitcases and swollen eyes. She was 22 years old. She had lost her mother, and she needed me to be enough. I had never cooked. Not really. Rosa had commanded the kitchen the way she commanded the cellar, with instinct and authority. But the first Saturday after she died, I stood at the stove at 6 in the evening and attempted her rigatoni a la Norma. Eggplant, tomatoes, ricotta salata. A recipe she had learned from her mother-in-law, my mother Angela, who had learned it from Marco's wife Lucia when they first arrived from Catania in 1951. I burned the eggplant. Oversalted the sauce. The pasta was limp and sad. Bella ate every bite without complaint. She sat across from me at the kitchen table. The table Marco had built from reclaimed barrel oak in 1960. And said, "Next Saturday, I'll help." That became our ritual. Every Saturday. 6 o'clock. No exceptions. Bella and I would cook together. Rosa's recipes at first, pulled from the stained notebook she kept in the drawer beside the stove. Then my mother's recipes. Then experiments. Things we invented together on rainy evenings when the valley was quiet, and the only sound was olive oil popping in a cast-iron pan. By 2018, I could make Rosa's braised short ribs without checking the notebook. By 2019, Bella's risotto was better than mine. By 2020, we had created our own tradition. A weekly anchor that held us steady through every storm. Those Saturday dinners saved us. They were the spine that kept our family upright when everything else threatened to collapse. During the day, there was the vineyard. 45 acres don't tend themselves. The East Block needed replanting in 2018. Phylloxera had weakened the rootstock, And I spent 4 months selecting new clones, grafting, planting, watering by hand until the young vines took hold. Bella worked beside me every weekend, her hands in the dirt, learning the language of soil and root systems the way Rosa had learned it from my father decades before. In 2019, Bella returned to San Francisco for her advanced sommelier exam. She passed on her first attempt. Only 11% of candidates pass on the first try. I remember standing in the kitchen reading her text message and weeping with a pride so large it felt like it might crack my ribs open. She came home that weekend with a bottle of 1997 Moretti Reserve, a vintage her mother had made the year Bella was born. We opened it on the porch at sunset, sitting in the same chairs Rosa and I had shared for 2 decades. The wine was extraordinary, deep garnet with amber edges, cherry, leather, tobacco. 22 years of patience in a single glass. Mom made this the year I was born, Bella said, holding the glass to the fading light. She was building something for me before I even existed. That's what parents do, I said. We plant things we might never harvest. She looked at me. I'll never sell this place, Dad. It's not land. It's family. Those words. I carried them like a stone in my pocket for years afterward. A talisman against the doubts that crept in during long winters and difficult harvests. She understood. She felt what this soil meant to us. The vineyard itself was worth $4.7 million by 2023. A real estate appraiser told me that, during a routine assessment for insurance purposes, I laughed at the number. It meant nothing to me. You don't sell your grandfather's hands. You don't put a price on the roots your wife watered with 30 years of devotion. Marco Moretti arrived in Napa Valley in 1952 with $800, a pregnant wife, and a knowledge of viticulture that went back 5 generations in the hills outside Catania, Sicily. He bought 45 acres of unplanted hillside on the Silverado Trail for $12 an acre. People thought he was crazy. The land was rocky, steep, impossible for anything except maybe goats. But Marco saw what no one else could see. He saw the volcanic soil. He saw the drainage. He saw the morning fog that would protect tender shoots from early frost. He planted Cabernet Sauvignon that first spring with cuttings he had carried in his suitcase from Sicily, wrapped in damp newspaper like sacred relics. Those vines survived everything. Drought in '63, the flood of '86, the earthquake of '89, fire in 2017, which burned within a mile of our property line but stopped when the wind shifted, as if Marco himself had stood at the border and said no further. By the time I inherited the vineyard from my father in 1992, Moretti wines were winning regional awards. Rosa transformed them into something national. Her 2005 Cabernet Reserve scored 97 points from Wine Spectator. Robert Parker called it transcendent. Orders came from New York, Chicago, Miami, London. We never expanded, never sold to a corporation, never franchised or branded or merchandised. Rosa's philosophy was simple. Small means we can love every vine by name. Big means we forget why we started. I carried that philosophy after she died. Through 8 harvests without her. Through seasons when the fog didn't come and the fruit blistered, and seasons when the rain wouldn't stop and the mold threatened everything. Bella and I brought in every vintage together. Her palate and Rosa's instincts. My hands and Marco's stubbornness. 8 years of soil and Saturdays. 8 years of keeping promises. The vineyard thrived. Bella thrived. The sealed barrel waited in the cellar, patient as the wine inside it, aging slowly in the dark. And then one Sunday afternoon in March of 2025, a man walked into our tasting room. He wore a tailored navy blazer and Italian leather shoes that caught the light. He smiled at my daughter like he had been rehearsing that smile for weeks. He extended his hand and said, "Chase Kingsley. I've heard Moretti wines are the best-kept secret in Napa." Bella blushed. I watched from behind the bar, polishing a glass that was already clean. Something cold moved through my chest. Not suspicion exactly. Not yet, but the feeling you get when the barometric pressure drops before a storm, when the air goes still and the birds stop singing and you know, somewhere deep in your bones, that something is coming. I said nothing that evening. I told myself I was being protective, paranoid. A widower who had held too tightly for too long. But I was right. I was right about everything. And within 6 months, that stranger in the tailored blazer would try to take everything Marco built, everything Rosa loved, everything I had promised to protect. He arrived on a Sunday. That detail mattered to me later because Sundays were quiet at the vineyard. Our tasting room was open by appointment, only on weekends, and most of our regular clients booked Saturdays. Sundays were for maintenance, for walking the rows, for the kind of solitary work that kept my hands busy and my mind still. Bella was behind the bar when Chase walked in. I was in the back room, reviewing invoices for the new French oak barrels we had ordered from a cooperage in Saint-Emilion. I heard the door chime, then his voice. Confident. Warm. Pitched perfectly between casual and professional. I've been hearing about Moretti wines for months. Finally made the drive up from the city. From the city. San Francisco, presumably. An hour-and-a-half drive for a tasting that wasn't scheduled. I stepped into the doorway of the back room and watched. Chase Kingsley was tall. 6'1", maybe 6'2". Dark hair swept back with product. A navy blazer over a white linen shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. Slim-cut khakis. Italian leather shoes, polished to a high shine. He looked like the cover of a magazine about men who own boats they never sail. Bella poured him our 2022 Sauvignon Blanc. He swirled the glass, held it to the light, and nodded with practiced appreciation. Gorgeous minerality. Very Loire Valley in character. You must be using stainless fermentation with extended lees contact. Technical. Specific. Impressive on the surface. Bella lit up. Exactly right. Most people don't catch the lees contact just from tasting. He smiled. I spent a semester in Bordeaux during business school. Wine is a passion of mine. Investment, too. I run a boutique portfolio, focused on premium wine and spirits properties. That was his introduction. Not his name first, not a handshake. His credentials, his authority. Establishing himself as a peer, not a tourist. Bella introduced herself. And within minutes they were deep in conversation about malolactic fermentation and the difference between American and French oak tannin profiles. I watched from the doorway for 10 minutes. He was knowledgeable. I'll give him that. He used the right vocabulary. He referenced the right winemakers. He dropped names. Harlan. Screaming Eagle. Opus 1. With the familiarity of someone who moved in those circles. But something felt rehearsed. Like a student who had memorized the textbook but never stepped in a vineyard. Wine people carry the industry in their bodies. Stained fingernails from sorting grapes. Calloused palms from pruning. The permanent squint from years of checking canopy density against the sun. Chase Kingsley had none of that. His hands were smooth. His nails were manicured. He wore cologne that would have been offensive in any working cellar. I stepped forward and introduced myself. His handshake was firm, almost too firm. The kind of grip that compensates for something. Mr. Moretti. What an honor. This vineyard is legendary in the valley. We do our best, I said. You mentioned an investment portfolio. What properties do you manage? A slight pause. Barely perceptible. Confidentiality prevents me from naming specific clients. NDAs, you understand. But I've worked with several boutique wineries in Sonoma and the Central Coast. My focus is on unlocking untapped value in heritage properties. Unlocking untapped value. The phrase landed with an edge I couldn't quite name. Heritage properties. He meant family vineyards. Old land. Land with stories and roots. and people who loved it. Land that corporations wanted to flatten into resorts and tasting rooms the size of airplane hangars. Would you like to try our reserve Cabernet? Bella asked, already reaching for the bottle. I'd be honored. She poured the 2021 reserve. He nosed it, sipped, and nodded approvingly. Exceptional. Old vine depth. You can taste the history. He slush and taste. That's when I decided to test him. Bella, I said casually, why don't we do a blind flight for our guest? 3 glasses. If he's really spent time in Bordeaux, this should be fun. Chase's smile didn't waver. I love a challenge. Bella poured 3 glasses behind the partition where Chase couldn't see the bottles. Glass 1. Our 2020 Cabernet Sauvignon. Glass 2. A 2019 Merlot from our neighbor's vineyard that I kept for comparison purposes. Glass 3. A $20 Cabernet from a grocery brand that I used to clean decanters when the tannins built up. 3 wines. To anyone with genuine training, the differences were unmistakable. The Cabernet had structure, tannin, blackcurrant intensity. The Merlot was softer, rounder, plum, and chocolate. The grocery wine was thin, acidic, with a metallic finish that announced itself immediately. Chase picked up the first glass, swirled, sipped, considered. Merlot, he said confidently. Excellent fruit. Very right bank. It was the Cabernet. Our Cabernet. The flagship wine that any professional would identify in 2 seconds flat. Glass 2. Cabernet Sauvignon. Beautiful tannin structure. Old vine. Definitely. It was the Merlot. Glass 3. He paused longer on this one. I watched his eyes. There was something behind them now. Uncertainty. The first crack in the performance. This is interesting. Unusual terroir. Maybe a Petit Verdot? Or a Cabernet Franc. It was the $20 grocery wine. 0 for 3. Not a single correct identification. A sommelier student on their first day of training would have scored better by random chance. This man, who claimed to have studied in Bordeaux, who managed a boutique wine investment portfolio, who referenced Harlan and Screaming Eagle with casual authority, could not distinguish a world-class Cabernet from a $20 bottle of industrial Planck. Bella glanced at me. I kept my face neutral. Interesting palate, I said. Nothing more. Chase laughed, easy and unbothered. Must be the jet lag catching up with me. I just flew in from a conference in New York yesterday. A convenient excuse. Delivered without hesitation. Practiced. He stayed another hour. Bella gave him a tour of the vineyard. I watched them walk between the rows from the tasting room window. She pointed at the old vines. He nodded. Asked questions. Touched her elbow when she turned to show him something. The gesture was small, but deliberate. Proprietary. Before he left, I noticed 2 things. His shoes. The Italian leather was polished on top, immaculate. But the soles were worn thin at the heels. 3. Maybe 4 months of heavy walking without replacement. A man who invested in appearance but couldn't afford maintenance. And his watch. A Tag Heuer Carrera. Stainless steel with a black dial. Expensive looking. But the second hand ticked in discreet jumps, instead of the smooth sweep of a genuine Swiss automatic movement. A replica. A good one. But a replica nonetheless. I knew watches. Rosa and I had collected them for years. You can fool most people with a $200 copy, but you can't fool someone who has held the real thing. Polished shoes with worn soles. A fake watch with a real brand name. A man who talked about wine but couldn't taste it. Everything about Chase Kingsley was surface. Performance. Costume. I said nothing that night. Bella came back inside, glowing. He's interesting, Dad. Different from the guys around here. He's worldly. Worldly. I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell her about the blind test, the shoes, the watch. But I saw her face. the brightness in it, the first spark I had seen in her eyes since her last relationship ended 2 years ago. And I told myself I was wrong. Overprotective. A father who couldn't let his daughter grow up. 3 weeks later, she canceled Saturday dinner for the first time in 8 years. A text at 4 in the afternoon. Dad. So sorry. Chase booked us a wine tour in Sonoma. Rain check? I stared at that message for a long time. Then I set the table for one and ate alone. The second Saturday. Another text. Savannah trip with Chase this weekend. He surprised me. Love you, Dad. The third Saturday. No message at all. I texted her at 4. Still on for tonight? Her reply came 90 minutes later. So sorry, Dad. Chase thinks we should start building our own traditions as a couple. Maybe every other week instead? Every other week became twice a month. Twice a month became once in May. Once in May became silence in June. I still cooked every Saturday. Force of habit. Or maybe stubbornness. I made Rosa's rigatoni, a la Norma, on the first Saturday. Bella didn't come. Set 2 places, caught myself. Removed the second plate. The clink of ceramic against the counter sounded louder than it should have. I ate alone. Washed the dishes, and sat on the porch with a glass of our 2022 reserve, while the valley darkened below me. The silence was different from loneliness. Loneliness is missing someone. This was erasure. Deliberate, methodical removal, like someone was peeling my daughter away from me one layer at a time, and she was too close to see the hands doing the peeling. In April, I invited them both for Easter. Bella called to decline. Chase's parents are in town from Connecticut. We're doing brunch at Bouchon. I asked if I could join. A pause. Too long. Let me check with Chase. Another pause. He says it's kind of a small thing. Just family. Just family. I was her family. Her only family. But the word had been redefined without my consent. In May, Bella stopped by the vineyard on a Wednesday to pick up photographs. We talked for 20 minutes. She apologized 4 times. For being late. For not calling sooner. For forgetting to text back. For taking too long finding the photos. 4 apologies in 20 minutes for things that didn't require apologies. This was new. Bella had never been an apologizer. She was decisive, confident, direct. Rosa's fire in a calmer frame. Now, she hedged every sentence. Checked her phone every 3 minutes with a quick, nervous glance. When I asked about work, she said Chase thought she should focus on building their brand. Repositioning Moretti in the luxury market. Repositioning. Luxury market. Language that didn't belong to my daughter. That sounds like Chase's plan, I said carefully. She stiffened. It's our plan, Dad. She left 15 minutes later. At the door, her phone buzzed. She checked it immediately. Something tightened around her eyes. She typed a quick reply. Chase needs me back. I'll call you this week. She didn't. Father's Day arrived in June. For 8 years, Bella had spent every Father's Day at the vineyard. Walking rows. Measuring sugar levels. Lunch on the porch. This year, a generic Hallmark card arrived in the mail. Happy Father's Day. Love, Bella and Chase. His name on my Father's Day card. I called her that afternoon. Voicemail. She texted back at 9. Thanks, Dad. Sorry we missed you. Chase had a thing planned. Love you, a thing. My Father's Day reduced to a thing someone else had planned. July 4th. I grilled tri-tip alone on the back patio. Corn on the cob. Rosa's coleslaw. One place setting. I watched distant fireworks over Napa from my hillside and went to bed at 9:30. August brought Veraison. The most critical time in the vineyard. When green grapes soften and change color. When sugar concentrates. When every decision matters. For 8 years, Bella had been beside me. Testing Brix levels at dawn. evaluating tannin by chewing grape skins in afternoon light, making the call on when to begin the sort. This year, she wasn't there. Not for Veraison. Not for the first pick in September. Not for the crush. For the first time since Rosa died, I brought in the harvest alone, hired extra hands from the Valley labor pool, good workers, but strangers. They didn't know which rose Rosa had planted. They didn't know that the southeast corner always ripened 3 days ahead of the rest. Bella knew. But Bella wasn't here. On a Thursday evening in late August, she called. Her voice carried something I hadn't heard in months. Not joy. Relief. The way someone sounds after crossing a finish line they weren't sure they'd reach. Dad, I have news. Chase proposed. We're engaged. I forced warmth into my voice. Congratulations, sweetheart. Are you happy? So happy, Dad. But the words came too fast. Rehearsed. That's all I want for you, I said. Then she said the words that turned my blood cold. Quiet. Almost casual. Like mentioning the weather. Oh. And Dad. Chase has some ideas about the vineyard. He thinks it's holding us back financially. He has a plan to modernize everything. Bring in outside investors. Take Moretti to the next level. Modernize. Outside investors. Next level. I gripped the phone until my knuckles went white. What does that mean, specifically? I don't know all the details yet. Chase is handling it. He says once we're married, we can restructure everything. Make it work for our future, instead of just maintaining the past. Maintaining the past. Is that what he told her? That 65 years of family history was just maintenance? That Marco's vines and Rosa's wine and every Saturday we'd spent together was just the past holding her back? We should talk about this, I said carefully. Definitely. But not tonight. Chase is waiting. Love you. Dad. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone. Outside, the last light of August faded over the valley. Somewhere beneath my feet, in the cellar, Rosa's sealed barrel waited in the dark. Her promise. My promise. Bella's inheritance. And now a man who couldn't tell Cabernet from Merlot wanted to sell it all. I picked up the phone and dialed Victor Salazar. Bella invited me to dinner on a Friday evening in early September. Come celebrate with us, Dad. 7 o'clock. Our place. Our place. The apartment on First Street in downtown Napa that I had helped her move into 3 years ago. The one with the small balcony overlooking the river where she used to sit with a glass of wine and call me on Sunday evenings. I brought a bottle of our 2019 Reserve. The vintage Rosa would have loved. Deep, complex, with a patience in the tannins that rewarded waiting. I also brought a check for $60,000 in an envelope tucked inside my jacket, money I had saved over 15 years of careful management. Consulting work. Barrel sales. A portion of every vintage set aside specifically for Bella's future. Her wedding, a house. Whatever she needed. Chase opened the door. Button-down shirt. Sleeves rolled to the forearm. Barefoot. Comfortable. Territorial. Frank, come in. Bella's finishing up in the kitchen. The apartment looked different. New furniture. Modern, minimalist. The old photographs of Rosa and the vineyard that had lined the hallway were gone, replaced by abstract prints in chrome frames. The bookshelf where Bella kept her wine reference library, her Jancis Robinson, her Karen McNeil, her World Atlas of Wine, was empty except for a few decorative objects. Candles. A ceramic vase. Nothing that said this was the home of a woman who had devoted her life to understanding wine. Bella emerged from the kitchen, flushed. She wore a dress I hadn't seen before. Something expensive and structured that didn't look like her. On her left hand, a diamond ring caught the pendant light. Large. Emerald cut. Platinum setting. Dad. She hugged me. Quick. Slightly rigid. I'm so glad you came. Wouldn't miss it. I handed her the wine. She set it on the counter without reading the label. Over dinner, takeout from a restaurant downtown, plated to look homemade, Chase laid out his vision. He called it the Moretti Elevation Strategy. He had slides on his laptop. Actual slides. Like a pitch to investors, not a family conversation. The wine industry is changing, Frank. He spoke with his hands. Broad gestures. Confidence that filled the room like cologne. Heritage brands are either evolving or dying. Moretti has incredible potential, but it's trapped in an artisanal model that can't scale. We've never wanted to scale, I said. Exactly the problem. He clicked to the next slide. A graph showing projected revenue with strategic partnership. The numbers climbed steeply. I've been in conversations with a hospitality group, premium resort development. They're looking for authentic vineyard properties with legacy value. The kind of place high-net-worth travelers want to experience. You want to turn our vineyard into a resort. Not a resort. An experience destination. We keep the Moretti name. We keep some of the vines for boutique production. But we develop the unused acreage. Tasting pavilions. A hotel. Event spaces. Unused acreage. Every acre of Moretti vineyards was planted. Every row had purpose. There was no unused acreage unless you counted the hilltop where my grandfather was buried. Who's this hospitality group? I asked. I can't name them yet. NDAs. That word again. The shield behind which every detail disappeared. But they're serious. We're talking significant capital injection. How significant? Chase paused, glanced at Bella, then back at me. In the range of 4 to 5 million. 4 to 5 million. For 45 acres that my grandfather planted with his bare hands. For 3 generations of love and labor and every vintage Rosa ever crafted. 4 to 5 million. I'd like to contribute to the wedding, I said, changing direction. I pulled the envelope from my jacket. 60,000. Whatever you need it for. Chase waved his hand before I could set it on the table. We appreciate that, Frank. But Bella and I want this to be our thing. We're handling everything ourselves. I insist, I've been saving this for years. His smile tightened. Almost imperceptible, but I caught it. The flash of something behind his eyes that wasn't gratitude. Annoyance, maybe. Or calculation. Really, we're fine. But thank you. I looked at Bella, waiting for her to speak, to accept her father's gift, to remind Chase that this was her family's money, offered with love. She looked at her plate. It's really generous, Dad. But Chase has it covered. Chase has it covered. The phrase hung in the air. I studied her ring while Chase cleared the plates. The diamond was flawless. Too flawless. The setting pristine, unworn, as if it had never settled against skin. I had spent years around fine jewelry with Rosa. Real engagement rings show wear within days. Micro scratches, the slightest dulling where metal meets daily life. This ring looked like it had come out of a display case that morning. Later, standing on the balcony while Chase loaded the dishwasher, I asked Bella about the timeline. November wedding. Magnolia-draped venue. 200 guests. And after the wedding? I asked. This modernization plan. What does that actually look like for you? She hesitated. Chase says once we're married, he can restructure the vineyard's ownership to bring in the investors. It makes the legal side cleaner. Restructure ownership. Once married. Legal side cleaner. Each phrase landed like a brick in my stomach. Bella, you own that vineyard. It's in your name. I transferred it to you when you turned 25. I know, Dad. But Chase says joint ownership, after marriage, makes the investment structure more attractive. She didn't see it. She couldn't see it. The man she was about to marry wanted legal access to a $4.7 million property. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. Not love. Not partnership. Acquisition. I drove home at 9:30. The valley was dark. Stars scattered across the sky, above the Mayacamas Mountains. I sat in my driveway for 10 minutes, engine off, thinking. At 11:47, my phone rang. Victor Salazar. Frank. His voice was tight, different. I need you to sit down. I'm sitting. I ran some searches tonight, after you called me last month. Public records. County filings. I found something. A pause. The kind that comes before sentences that change everything. There's a signed contract already filed with Napa County. Purchase agreement. Your vineyard. $4.7 million. Buyer is Pacific Crest Hospitality Group, registered in Nevada. And Frank. He exhaled. The seller's signature on the agreement is Isabella Moretti, except I pulled up her actual signature from the deed transfer in 2020. They don't match. Someone forged your daughter's name on a $4.7 million contract. The stars outside my windshield blurred. The valley disappeared. How long ago? I whispered. Filed 3 weeks ago. Closing date is December 15th. 2 weeks after the wedding. 2 weeks after the wedding. When Chase would have legal standing as Bella's husband, when challenging the sale would become exponentially more complicated. Frank, are you there? I'm here. My voice was steady, cold. The voice of a man who had just stopped hoping for the best and started planning for war. Victor, I need you to do something for me. Find me the best private investigator in Northern California. Someone thorough. Someone who doesn't stop digging until they hit bedrock. I know someone. Elena Vasquez, former FBI. She's expensive. I don't care what she costs. I hung up. The sealed barrel in my cellar. Rosa's promise. Bella's inheritance. A predator was circling everything we had built, and my daughter couldn't see the teeth behind his smile. But I could. And I was done being patient. Victor's office sat above a wine shop on Main Street in Street Helena. A narrow staircase led to a second-floor room lined with filing cabinets and framed maps of Napa Valley parcels dating back to the 1870s. He had practiced real estate law in this valley for 35 years. Every vineyard sale, every estate transfer, every boundary dispute within 50 miles had crossed his desk at some point. I arrived at 8 the next morning. He was already waiting. Coffee poured. The contract spread across his desk like evidence at a crime scene. Sit down, he said. No greeting, no small talk. Victor had never been a man who wasted words. The document was 14 pages. Standard California real estate purchase agreement format, but the numbers were anything but standard. I read the header. Seller. Isabella R. Moretti. Buyer. Pacific Crest Hospitality Group, LLC. Registered in Henderson, Nevada. Purchase price. $4,700,000. Property description. Moretti Vineyards, 45 acres, Silverado Trail, Napa County, California. APN. Followed by a number I recognized as my family's land. When was this filed? I asked. August 29th. 3 weeks before you called me last night. Someone walked it into the county recorder's office in person. I turned to the signature page. There it was. Isabella R. Moretti, written in a looping hand that looked close to my daughter's writing. Close, but wrong. Bella's signature had a distinctive way of crossing her T's. A sharp upward stroke she had developed in college. This signature crossed the T flat. Horizontal. Mechanical. I noticed the same thing, Victor said, reading my face. So I pulled the original deed transfer from 2020, the one she signed when you gave her ownership of the vineyard on her 25th birthday. He laid 2 documents side by side. The 2020 deed signature and the contract signature. Even without training, the differences were visible. The rhythm was off. The pressure points fell in different places. The capital I in Isabella leaned left in the deed and right in the contract. I sent both to Margaret Chen, forensic handwriting analyst in San Francisco. She confirmed within 4 hours. These were not written by the same hand. Someone forged Bella's signature. Yes. Victor leaned back in his chair. And I think we both know who. I stared at the contract. Pacific Crest Hospitality Group. I had never heard of them. What do we know about the buyer? Victor opened his laptop. Registered 6 months ago in Nevada. Henderson address is a mail forwarding service. No website. No public filings. Beyond the LLC registration. Single listed member. A company called Kingsley Capital Partners. Kingsley. Not even trying to hide it. The arrogance of a man who believed no one was watching. Kingsley Capital Partners, Victor continued, was registered 4 months ago. Also Nevada. Also a mail forwarding address. The listed agent is Chase A. Kingsley. I exhaled slowly. Chase had created shell companies to buy my family's vineyard using my daughter's forged signature. He had filed the contract with the county 3 weeks ago. The closing date, December 15th, fell exactly 14 days after the November wedding. Why after the wedding? I asked. Though I already knew. Victor nodded. Once they're married, California community property law gives him standing. Even if Bella didn't knowingly sign this contract, Chase could argue as her spouse that the transaction was discussed and agreed upon within the marriage. Challenging the sale becomes exponentially harder. More expensive. Could take years in court. By then, Pacific Crest has possession, the land is developed, and there's nothing left to save. The mathematics of it were precise. Marry Bella in November. Close the sale in December. Develop the land in spring. By the time any legal challenge reached a courtroom, Moretti Vineyards would be a parking lot beneath a luxury hotel. What about Bella? I asked. If I tell her now, show her the contract, the forged signature. Victor set down his coffee. His face was careful, practiced from decades of delivering difficult truths to clients. Frank, I've known you for 30 years, and I'm going to be direct. If you go to Bella with this right now, Chase will twist it. He'll say you fabricated the documents, that you're paranoid, obsessed with controlling her life. And based on what you've told me about the last 6 months, the canceled dinners, the isolation, the language she's using, she'll believe him, not you. The truth of that settled like a stone in my chest. My daughter, who had once trusted me with everything, would not believe me over the man who had spent 6 months rebuilding her reality. So what do? We build a case. Airtight. Irrefutable. Something Chase can't talk his way out of. We need more than a forged contract. We need his history, his pattern. If he's done this before, and men like this always have, we find the other victims. We build a file so comprehensive that when we put it in front of Bella, or in front of a judge, there's no possible explanation except fraud. How long? Depends on how deep his history goes. Weeks. Maybe less if Elena finds something quickly. The wedding is in 10 weeks. Victor met my eyes. Then we work fast. I wrote the retainer check for Elena Vasquez that afternoon. $5,000. Victor arranged a meeting at his office for the following Tuesday. Former FBI, he said, specializes in financial fraud and identity investigation. Thorough, discreet, relentless. I drove home along the Silverado Trail, past the rows of vines I had tended for 40 years, past the stone marker where my grandfather's name was carved, past the cellar entrance where Rosa's barrel waited in the dark. Every vine, every stone, every inch of this land was a chapter in my family's story. And a man with shell companies and forged signatures was trying to close the book. The closing date was December 15th. The wedding was November 22nd. That gave me 10 weeks to uncover everything Chase Kingsley had buried. 10 weeks to build a case strong enough to stop a predator. 10 weeks to save my daughter and my grandfather's land. I parked in my driveway and looked up at the house. The house Marco built. The house Rosa filled with laughter and the smell of wine fermenting in autumn. The house where Bella took her first steps. 10 weeks. I had designed buildings under tighter deadlines. I had survived worse odds. And I had made a promise to a dying woman that I would protect this family no matter what it cost me. Elena's report arrived 9 days later. 43 pages. 4 states. 3 different names. And one woman in Denver who had tried to kill herself because of what Chase Kingsley had done to her family's ranch. Elena Vasquez arrived at my house on a Tuesday evening in early October. She drove a silver Honda Civic with no distinguishing features. Mid-40s, dark hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her head. She carried a leather messenger bag and the quiet confidence of someone who had spent 15 years with the FBI before going private. We sat at my kitchen table. She opened the bag and placed a bound document in front of me. 43 pages. A plain blue cover with a single label, typed in black. Subject: Chase A. Kingsley. Background investigation. Confidential. I'm going to walk you through this section by section, she said. Some of it will confirm what you already suspect. Some of it will be worse. She was right on both counts. Chase Kingsley was born Chase Allen Kessler on April 7, 1992, in Plano, Texas. He legally changed his name in 2018 after his first bankruptcy. In 2021, he used a third identity, Chase Andrew Kent, to register a real estate LLC in Arizona. 3 names, 3 states, 3 versions of the same predator. The bankruptcy, Elena said, turning to Section 2. Filed in Harris County, Texas, in January 2021. Total discharged debt, $890,000. A failed real estate development company called Lone Star Premier Properties. He sold 12 investors on a luxury condominium project in Austin that never broke ground. Collected deposits. Spent the money. Filed for Chapter 7 when the lawsuits started. She turned the page. A spreadsheet of creditors. Banks. Private lenders. Individual investors who had trusted him with their savings. His gambling debts are separate from the bankruptcy. Elena pointed to a highlighted section. 3 casinos. Thunder Valley in Sacramento. Wynn in Las Vegas. Beau Rivage in Biloxi, Mississippi. Total owed across all 3. $320,000. Collection agencies have been chasing him since 2022. He's been moving states to stay ahead of them. I stared at the numbers. $890,000 in bankruptcy. $320,000 in gambling debts. Plus whatever else he owed under his other names. The man courting my daughter carried more than $1 million in unpaid obligations. His real estate license, I said. He claimed to be in the industry. Elena nodded. Licensed in Arizona in 2019 under the name Chase Kent. Suspended in 2022 for fraudulent misrepresentation and failure to disclose conflicts of interest. He was selling properties he had a hidden financial stake in, pocketing both the commission and the profit without disclosing ownership to buyers. And the LLCs? 4 total. Lone Star Premier in Texas. Desert Ridge Capital in Arizona. Mountain Creek Ventures in Colorado. And now, Kingsley Capital Partners in Nevada. The one tied to your vineyard contract. All dissolved except the last one. All left unpaid debts. All followed the same pattern. Register a company. Recruit investors. Or target a property owner. Extract money. Disappear when things collapse. She turned to Section 4. Her voice softened slightly. This is the part that's going to be difficult. The section header read, Diane Prescott, Denver, Colorado, Mountain Creek Ventures. Diane was 30 years old when she met Chase in 2020. He was using the name Chase Kent at the time. She owned a cattle ranch outside Fort Collins that had been in her family for 4 generations, 160 acres. Her grandfather had built the main house with his own hands in 1948. The parallels were immediate, Elena said quietly. Heritage property. Family legacy. Single woman managing it alone after her father passed. Chase appeared in Diane's life, the same way he appeared in Bella's. A charming stranger at an industry event. Knowledge that seemed genuine on the surface. The promise of modernization. Investment. Taking the property to the next level. Within 8 months, he had moved in. Within 10, he had convinced Diane to transfer partial ownership to Mountain Creek Ventures, his LLC, for tax purposes. He claimed. Within 12 months, he had leveraged that ownership to take out a loan of $2.8 million against the ranch's value. The money disappeared into accounts Diane never had access to. When she discovered the loan, she confronted him. He told her she was confused, that she had agreed to everything, that she was remembering incorrectly. When she persisted, he vanished, left the state, left her with a $2.8 million debt secured against her family's land. Diane lost the ranch in foreclosure 7 months later, 160 acres, 4 generations. Gone. And then, Elena said, her voice careful, 3 months after losing the ranch, Diane attempted suicide. Her neighbor found her, called 911. She spent 2 weeks in a psychiatric facility. The kitchen was very quiet. Outside, wind moved through the vines. A familiar sound. The sound of home. The sound of everything Chase wanted to take from us. Where is she now? I asked. Denver. She's rebuilt her life. Works for a nonprofit that helps victims of financial fraud. She's stable. Strong. Elena paused. And she's willing to cooperate. She slid a single page across the table. A typed statement. Signed and notarized. I read it slowly. My name is Diane Prescott. In 2020, a man calling himself Chase Kent entered my life and systematically destroyed everything my family had built over 4 generations. He isolated me from my support system. He manipulated me into trusting him with my property. He stole $2.8 million and disappeared. I lost my ranch. I lost my sense of self. I nearly lost my life. If Isabella Moretti is engaged to this man, she is in immediate danger. I am willing to testify, provide documentation, and speak directly with her family. He must be stopped before he does this again. I set the paper down. My hands were steady, but something inside me had shifted. This was no longer about protecting my vineyard. This was no longer about a father's suspicion. This was about a predator who destroyed lives as a business model, who had driven a woman to attempt suicide, and then moved on to his next target without a backward glance. My daughter was his next target. My grandfather's land was his next score. Elena, I said, is this enough for criminal charges? The forged contract is enough for fraud charges in California. Combined with Diane's case in Colorado and the bankruptcy in Texas, the FBI would likely open an interstate fraud investigation. But that takes time. Months. Maybe longer. The wedding is in 6 weeks. I know. She closed the report. What do you want to do? I thought about Victor's advice. Build the case. Wait. Be strategic. I thought about Diane Prescott waking up in a hospital bed wondering why she was still alive. I thought about Bella wearing a ring that probably wasn't real. Planning a wedding on land that Chase had already sold out from under her. First, I said, I'm going to give him one chance to walk away. Man to man. If he has any self-preservation instinct at all, he'll take it. Elena raised an eyebrow. And if he doesn't, then we go to war. I picked up my phone and typed a message to Chase Kingsley. We need to talk. Just you and me. Oxbow Public Market. Thursday. 10 a.m. His reply came 30 seconds later. Casual. Arrogant. Entirely predictable. Sure thing, Frank. Looking forward to it. I stared at those words. Looking forward to it. Like this was a social call. like I was inviting him for coffee and conversation. He had no idea what was coming, or maybe he did. And he simply didn't care. Men like Chase had survived on charm and audacity for so long that they couldn't imagine a world where it stopped working. Thursday morning, he would learn otherwise. I arrived at Oxbow Public Market 15 minutes early. Thursday morning in October. The market sat along the Napa River. A long industrial building converted into a food hall, artisan cheese shops, a craft brewery, a chocolate maker whose roasting machine filled the air with something bittersweet. Tourists wandered between stalls with paper cups of coffee and bags of olive oil. I ordered a black coffee from the Ritual Roaster and chose a table on the outdoor patio, visible from the entrance. Public enough that he couldn't make a scene, private enough for the conversation we needed to have. The manila folder sat on the table in front of me. Inside, copies of the forged contract, Margaret Chen's handwriting analysis, the bankruptcy filing summary, Diane Prescott's signed statement, the LLC registrations linking Chase to all three identities. Copies. Always copies. The originals were in Victor's safe. Chase arrived 12 minutes late. Sunglasses. A cream linen shirt unbuttoned to the sternum. Leather loafers without socks. He carried an iced coffee from somewhere else, condensation dripping down the cup. He slid into the chair across from me with the easy confidence of a man who believed every room belonged to him. Frank. He removed his sunglasses, tucked them into his shirt pocket, smiled the smile I had seen at every dinner, every conversation, every moment he performed concern or affection. What's on your mind? Bella okay? Bella's fine. This is about you. A slight shift in his posture. Barely perceptible. About me? I slid the folder across the table. Open it. He looked at the folder the way you look at a parking ticket. Mild annoyance. He flipped it open casually, expecting nothing that could touch him. I watched his face as he turned the pages. The forged contract. His eyes moved across it without reaction. The handwriting analysis. A slight tightening around his jaw. The bankruptcy filing. His fingers slowed. The LLC registrations. Chase Kessler. Chase Kent. Chase Kingsley. 3 names on 3 documents in 3 states. His tongue ran across his lower lip. Then he reached Diane Prescott's statement. I watched him read it. Watched the moment her name registered. His pupils contracted. A micro-expression. Gone in half a second, replaced immediately by the mask. But I saw it. Fear. The first crack. He closed the folder and leaned back. The smile returned. But it was different now. Tighter. Forced. Wow. He laughed. Short. Dismissive. You really went full detective on me, huh? What is this, Frank? You hired someone to dig through my past because you can't handle your daughter growing up? I know who you are, Chase. Or should I say Chase Kessler? Or Chase Kent? I know about the bankruptcy, the gambling, the 4 dissolved companies. I know about Diane Prescott and what you did to her ranch. What you did to her life, Diane. He said her name like it meant nothing. That was a business dispute. Ancient history. She tried to kill herself. For the first time. Silence. His fingers tapped the edge of his iced coffee. Once. Twice. Then he shrugged. People make their own choices, Frank. I can't be responsible for someone else's mental health. I leaned forward. I'm giving you one chance. Walk away from Bella. Break off the engagement. Leave Napa. I won't press charges about the forged contract. I won't contact the FBI. I won't tell Bella anything. You just disappear. Clean. Quiet. Chase studied me. His head tilted slightly, the way a predator assesses whether something is a threat or prey. Then he picked up his coffee and took a long, slow sip, watching me over the rim. No, he said. Think carefully. I don't need to think. He set the cup down. The charm evaporated. What replaced it? was something cold and still, like the surface of a lake, with no wind. Bella is mine. The vineyard is mine. In 6 weeks, it'll be legal. And there's nothing you can do about it. I have a 43-page report that says otherwise. You have papers. He leaned forward. His voice dropped. Quiet. Controlled. Venomous. Papers don't mean anything when your daughter thinks you're a senile old man who can't let go. And that's exactly what she thinks, Frank. That's what everyone in this valley will think by the time I'm done. Is that a threat? It's a promise. He stood. Slowly. Deliberately. Looked down at me from his full height. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home to your empty house. You're going to pour yourself a glass of whatever wine makes you feel important. And you're going to watch while I marry your daughter on your land, sell it to the highest bidder, and build something actually worthwhile on top of your grandfather's dirt. He picked up the folder. I didn't stop him. He held it in both hands, looked at me, and tore it in half. The pages split, with a sound like a branch breaking. He dropped the pieces on the table, contract fragments, Diane's statement torn across her signature. The handwriting analysis ripped through Margaret Chen's conclusion. See you at the wedding, Frank. He slid his sunglasses back on. Oh, wait. You're not invited. He walked away. Through the market. Past the cheese shop and the chocolate maker. Out into the October sunshine. He didn't look back. Not once. I sat alone at the table. Tourists moved around me. A woman laughed inside the market. Someone dropped a glass. The ordinary sounds of a Thursday morning continuing as if nothing had happened. As if a man hadn't just declared war on everything I loved. The torn pages lay scattered on the table. Diane's name visible on a fragment. Chase's 3 identities on another. Evidence. Proof. Ripped apart, like it meant nothing. But it did mean something. It meant he was scared. A confident man doesn't tear up papers he isn't worried about. A man who truly believed he was untouchable wouldn't need to destroy the evidence in front of me. He would have laughed and walked away. Chase was scared. And scared men make mistakes. I gathered the torn pieces and placed them in my bag. Then I took out my phone. 2 messages. First, to Victor. He refused. Proceeding with full plan. Second, to Elena. I need Diane Prescott's phone number. She said she was willing to cooperate. It's time to take her up on that. Victor replied in 30 seconds. Understood. I'll prepare the legal filings. Elena replied in 2 minutes. Sending now. She's expecting your call. I finished my coffee. Cold now. Bitter. I looked out at the Napa River moving slowly past the market. Brown water carrying fallen leaves toward the bay. Everything flowing forward. Everything inevitable. Chase Kingsley had been given a chance to leave quietly. To walk away with nothing worse than his past catching up to him. He had chosen instead to threaten me, to threaten my land, to promise the destruction of everything my family had built over 73 years. So be it. I had offered mercy. He had chosen war. Now I would give him war, but not the kind he expected. Not rage. Not confrontation. Not the flailing of an emotional old man he could point to and call unstable. Something quieter. Something architectural. Designed. Load-bearing. The kind of structure that doesn't fall when you push against it, because every beam is exactly where it needs to be. I had 6 weeks until the wedding. 6 weeks to build something Chase couldn't tear apart with his hands. The first attack came 6 days after our meeting at Oxbow. A 1-star review appeared on our Yelp page. Anonymous. Generic profile photo. Posted at 2:17 in the morning. Visited Moretti Vineyards last month. The owner seemed disoriented and confused during our tasting. Couldn't remember which wines he'd already poured. Felt uncomfortable. Would not recommend. I had never been disoriented in my own tasting room. I had poured wine for visitors on this property for 40 years, without once forgetting a label, a vintage, or a face. But there it was. 1 star. Public. Permanent. The next morning, 2 more. Overpriced wines. The old man running the place got aggressive when I asked about purchasing options. Very unprofessional. And such a shame. This used to be a lovely winery, but the quality has clearly declined. Owner appears to be struggling with memory issues. Someone should check on him. Memory issues. The language was specific. Clinical. Planted with purpose. Within a week, our rating dropped from 4.8 stars to 3.1. 9 new reviews, all 1 star. All posted between midnight and 4 in the morning. All from profiles, with no photos, no history, no other reviews. Each one mentioned confusion, aggression, or cognitive decline. A pattern so obvious it might as well have carried Chase's signature. I called Victor. He contacted a digital forensics consultant who traced the IP addresses of 3 reviews to a mobile device registered to a Verizon account in Chase Kingsley's name. We had proof. But proof didn't undo the damage. 3 distributors who carried our wine called within 10 days. Each conversation was nearly identical. "Frank, we love your wines. But we're getting questions from retailers about the reviews. They're concerned about consistency. Pacific Wine Merchants dropped us first, then Vintage California Selections, then North Bay Fine Wines, a distributor who had carried Moretti for 15 years. 15 years of partnership ended with a 3-minute phone call and an apology that sounded rehearsed. I didn't tell them about Chase. I didn't explain. What would I say? My daughter's fiancé is a con artist who's trying to destroy my business as a prelude to stealing my land? It sounded exactly like what Chase wanted it to sound. Paranoid. Unhinged. The ramblings of a man losing his grip. 2 weeks after Oxbow. The phone rang at 9 in the morning. A woman's voice. Professional and cautious. "Mr. Moretti, this is Sandra Collins from Napa County Adult Protective Services. We received an anonymous concern about your well-being." The caller mentioned potential alcohol abuse and cognitive impairment. It's standard procedure for us to follow up. I sat on my porch and answered her questions for 20 minutes. Was I eating regularly? Yes. Did I have support systems? Yes. Was I consuming alcohol excessively? I own a vineyard, Miss Collins. I drink a glass of wine with dinner. She was kind, apologetic, clearly uncomfortable. She noted that the complaint was anonymous and vague, and that I appeared lucid and coherent. She closed the file. But the call itself was the weapon, not the investigation. The call. Because somewhere in Chase's plan, this would surface. He would mention it to Bella. Casually. Concerned. "Did you know Adult Protective Services contacted your father? People are worried about him, sweetheart. Maybe we should look into getting him some help." Each move was calculated. Reviews to damage my business. Distributor loss to threaten my income. The APS call to plant seeds of institutional concern. A paper trail of instability constructed around me by a man who had done this before. To Diane Prescott in Colorado. To Andrea in Seattle. To however many others had never come forward. Then came the morning that changed everything. October 23rd. 5:14 in the morning. I woke to the sound of my alarm. The same time I had risen for 40 years of harvest seasons. Coffee first. Black. Standing at the kitchen window, watching dawn lighten the valley. Then boots, jacket, and out the back door to walk the rows. I smelled it before I saw it. Chemical. Sharp. Wrong. Like bleach and gasoline mixed together. A smell that didn't belong anywhere near grapevines. I walked faster. Past the Merlot block. Past the Chardonnay. Toward the southeast corner of the property where the oldest vines grew. The vines my grandfather Marco planted in 1952. Cabernet Sauvignon from Sicilian cuttings he had carried in his suitcase across the Atlantic. 73 years old. root systems that reached 15 feet into volcanic soil, trunks gnarled and thick as a man's forearm, twisted by decades of sun and wind into shapes that looked almost human. 2 rows, 16 vines in each, 32 plants total. Every single one was dead. The leaves hung brown and curled. The canes were black, shriveled. The bark had split in places, weeping a clear fluid that pooled in the morning dew like tears. Someone had sprayed them with herbicide, glyphosate most likely. Concentrated, applied directly to the trunk and root zone where the chemicals would be absorbed fastest. I knelt beside the first vine in the row. The trunk was thicker than my wrist. I placed my hand against the bark the way you touch a dying animal. Gently, reverently, knowing there was nothing to be done. 73 years. These vines had survived the drought of 63, when the reservoir ran dry, and Marco carried water by hand from the creek. They survived the flood of 86 when the Napa River overflowed and the lower vineyards were submerged for 3 days. They survived the earthquake of 89, the fires of 2017 that burned within a mile of our property line. They survived phylloxera, Pierce's disease, smoke taint, labor shortages, and every challenge that the California wine industry had thrown at family vineyards for 7 decades. They did not survive Chase Kingsley. I stood there for a long time. The sun rose over the Vaca Mountains to the east, painting the valley in gold and amber. Beautiful. Indifferent. The light fell on living vines and dead ones alike without distinction. I called Victor at 7. My voice was flat, controlled. The voice of a man who had moved past grief and anger into something colder. He poisoned the 52 vines. 2 full rows. They're gone. Silence on the line. Then Victor, quietly, "Oh, Frank. Oh, God. I need you to call Elena. Tell her to get me Diane Prescott on the phone today. Not tomorrow. Today." "Frank, are you?" "I'm done offering mercy, Victor. I'm done being patient. I'm done waiting for the right moment." I looked at the dead vines. Marco's vines. The oldest living things on this property. Older than me. Older than my memories. Gone in a single night. Because a man with 3 names and $1 million in debt wanted to hurt me. He killed my grandfather's vines, I said. The ones Marco brought from Sicily. The ones that survived everything for 73 years. Victor was quiet for a moment. "What do you want to do?" "I want Diane's number. I want her on the phone by noon. And I want you to start preparing everything we need for a live stream that will reach every person in this valley." "A live stream?" "Chase wants to destroy me quietly. In the dark. Behind fake reviews and poison in the night." I looked at the golden hills, the valley spreading wide below me. "I'm going to destroy him in the light. In front of everyone. On the day he thinks he's won. The wedding. The wedding." The call came on a Monday afternoon in early November. 3 weeks before the wedding. I was in the cellar, checking fermentation temperatures when my phone vibrated. Bella's name. "Dad?" Her voice was soft, tentative. The voice of someone reading from a card they didn't write. "Can we have dinner this week?" "Just us. I'm worried about you. Hope is dangerous when you've been starving." Maybe she had seen through him. Maybe the silence meant she was reconsidering. "Of course, sweetheart. Anywhere you want. Bottega? Thursday at 7? Chase won't be there. Just father and daughter. Bottega. Michael Chiarello's restaurant in Yountville. White tablecloths. Soft lighting. The kind of restaurant where voices carry. I should have recognized the staging. A public venue. Witnesses. No Chase present. But his fingerprints on every detail. I arrived at 6:45. Corner table near the window. Visible from half the dining room. Bella appeared at 7:10. Charcoal dress. Hair pulled back. No engagement ring. She hugged me longer than usual. Her hands trembled. We ordered. Talked about nothing for 15 minutes. Then her expression shifted. She set down her fork, folded her hands. Dad, I need to talk to you about something serious. Chase and I are worried about your health. My health. Forgetfulness. Mood changes. The accusations about Chase. She paused. And the Yelp reviews. Several customers mentioned you seemed confused during tastings. Chase's fabricated reviews. Weaponized through my own daughter's mouth. Those reviews are fake, Bella. Posted between midnight and 4 in the morning by accounts with no history. She shook her head. Something sad in her eyes. Pitying. Dad, you think someone is conspiring against you. That's not normal. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket. Victor's summary. The forged contract. Shell companies. Chase's real name. Look at this. Pacific Crest Hospitality Group. The listed member is Kingsley Capital Partners. That's Chase. He created shell companies to buy our vineyard using your forged signature. She didn't take it. Stared at it like something dangerous. Dad, please, stop. The closing date is December 15th. 2 weeks after your wedding. He needs to marry you. To get legal access. This is exactly what we were afraid of. The voice came from behind me. A woman. Mid-30s. Professional attire. Name badge. Karen Wheeler. RN. PMHNP. She had been sitting 2 tables away. Waiting. Mr. Moretti. I'm a friend of Chase and Bella's. A mental health professional. Gentle voice. Practiced tone. What you're describing, the paranoia. The conspiracy beliefs. These are symptoms that can be treated. I looked at Bella. Her eyes were wet. She believed this. She truly believed her father was losing his mind. Did Chase arrange this? I asked. Karen is here because I asked her. Because I'm scared, Dad. You're not yourself. I have documentation. Forensic handwriting analysis. A 43-page report. Karen sat uninvited. The creation of elaborate documentation to support a fixed belief system is common in certain cognitive conditions. It doesn't mean the documents aren't real to you. I'm not having this conversation. I stood. Chair scraped tile. Heads turned. The older couple stared. A waiter froze. Dad. Please. Bella reached for my hand. I took it. Held it. Looked into her eyes and saw something that broke me. Not anger. Genuine fear. My daughter was afraid of me. Chase had made her afraid of her own father. Everything I've told you is true, I said quietly. One day, you'll see that. She pulled her hand away. Gently. Like releasing something fragile. I love you, Dad. But you need help. I walked into the November night. Yountville was quiet. Through the window, Bella wiped her eyes while Karen placed a reassuring hand on her arm. Chase hadn't needed to be there. He had built the trap so perfectly that Bella triggered it herself, believing she was saving her father. 3 days later. Sunday evening. 8:15. Bella's name on my phone. Dad. Flat. Controlled. The voice of someone who had sealed a decision shut. Chase and I talked. About Thursday. About everything. We don't think you should come to the wedding. The words landed in the hollow space that had been growing since May, since the first canceled Saturday. Your behavior has become unpredictable. The accusations. The documents. Karen said confrontation could trigger a worse episode. We need to protect ourselves. Bella. Is this what you want? Or what Chase wants? Silence. Then quietly. It's what's best. I love you. Nothing changes that. I love you too, Dad. The line went dead. I sat in the dark. Rosa's photograph caught the hallway light. The valley held its breath outside. Then I replayed the conversation. Every word. Every inflection. And I caught it. During Thursday's dinner, when Karen arrived, Bella had been explaining why the nurse was there. She had said, Derek, I mean, Chase and I discussed it last week. Derek. A name that didn't belong to anyone in this story. A slip. A fracture. A moment where Chase's script tangled with something else. Another name he had used. Another woman who had known him differently. The correction was instant, automatic. Bella wouldn't have caught it herself. But I caught it. And it told me something important. Somewhere beneath Chase's control, beneath the rewritten reality, there were cracks, hairline fractures in the walls. She wasn't completely gone. Not yet. I picked up the phone. Victor. The wedding is November 22nd. I need Diane in Napa by that morning. She already booked her flight. She's ready, Frank. Then so am I. November 22nd. I woke at 4:30. Not from the alarm. From the silence. The kind of silence that fills a house when something irreversible is about to happen. I showered. Dressed. Navy suit. The same one I wore to Rosa's funeral 8 years ago. The same one I would have worn to walk my daughter down the aisle if anyone had asked me to. I knotted a burgundy tie that Rosa gave me on our 25th anniversary. Polished shoes. Cologne she liked. As if dressing well could armor me against what was coming. In the kitchen, I made coffee. Drank it standing at the window, watching first light creep across the valley. The vines were bare now. November had stripped them to canes and wire. Dormant, waiting for spring, except the 2 dead rows in the southeast corner. Those wouldn't come back. Those were gone forever. On the counter beside my keys, a small tripod, a portable phone charger, fully loaded. A printed list of talking points Victor and I had rehearsed 3 times this week, and Elena's report, the full 43 pages, uploaded to a shared drive that Diane, Victor, and I could access from anywhere. The plan was simple. Architectural, as I'd promised myself. Every beam in place. Every load calculated. I would go to the vineyard. I would be turned away. I would climb the hill, overlooking the ceremony. I would go live. I would present the evidence calmly, methodically, document by document. And then, Diane would step into frame and tell her story. The story of a woman who lost her family's ranch, her savings, and nearly her life to the same man my daughter was about to marry. Victor had contacted 3 local journalists. None of them would attend, but all 3 would be watching the stream. Elena had prepared a packet for the Napa County District Attorney's Office, ready to file Monday morning regardless of what happened today. And Diane Prescott had driven from Denver to a hotel in Street Helena last night. She texted me at 11. I'm here. I'm ready. See you tomorrow. I picked up my phone and checked the live stream setup one final time. Camera angle tested yesterday afternoon from the hilltop. Internet signal confirmed strong via portable hotspot. Backup battery connected. Title card ready. The truth about Chase Kingsley. Everything was in place. Months of preparation reduced to a single afternoon. I drove the Silverado Trail at 7:45. The morning was cool and clear. Fog pooled in the valley floor, but the hilltops were already touched with gold. I passed vineyards I'd known my entire life. Neighbors who had watched me grow from a boy helping his father prune to a man running his own estate. People who knew Rosa. People who remembered Marco. By the time I reached Moretti Vineyards at 8:15, the catering trucks were already parked along the gravel access road. White vans from a florist in Napa. A rental company, unloading chairs. The machinery of a wedding assembling itself on my family's land while I approached like a stranger. I parked on the shoulder of Silverado Trail, 200 yards from the main gate. Walked the rest. The morning air smelled like eucalyptus and crushed sage. Familiar. Mine. Every molecule of this air had passed through vines my grandfather planted. The gate appeared through the trees. And in front of it, a man in a black polo shirt and khaki pants. Security. Hired. A clipboard in his hand, and an earpiece, curling behind his right ear. He saw me coming and straightened. "Morning, sir. Can I help you?" "Frank Moretti. This is my vineyard." His face shifted. Recognition and discomfort. He knew the situation. He'd been briefed. "Sir, I have instructions that you're not permitted on the property today." "I'm sorry." I didn't argue with him. He was a man doing a job he probably felt uncomfortable about. The argument wasn't with him. It was with the figure now walking toward us from inside the gate. Chase. White tuxedo jacket. Black pants. Hair sculpted. The groom on his wedding day, striding toward the gate of my family's property, with the confidence of a man who believed he already owned everything his eyes could reach. Frank. That voice. Controlled. Amused. "I thought we were clear about this. I came to see my daughter. Your daughter doesn't want to see you." He stopped 3 feet from the gate, close enough for me to see the boutonniere on his lapel. White roses. Rosa's favorite flower. A coincidence, probably. Or maybe not. Maybe one more thing he had taken. "You know," he said quietly, leaning closer to the iron bars, "I almost feel sorry for you. Standing out here like this. It's embarrassing, Frank. For both of us." Behind him, through the bars, I could see the ceremony taking shape. Chairs arranged between vine rows, an arbor draped with greenery and white fabric. Guests beginning to arrive, stepping from cars in pastels and linen, and beyond them, through the tasting room window that served as the bridal suite, a flash of white lace. Bella stood inside, surrounded by women in lavender. Her hair was pinned up, Rosa's style. She was laughing at something, her face bright in the morning light. Then she turned toward the window, toward the gate, toward me. I held my breath. She saw me. I know she did. Her laughter stopped. Her hand rose slightly, then fell. She held my gaze for 3 seconds. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. Then she turned away. Back to her bridesmaids. Back to the room. Back to the life Chase had built around her like a cage she couldn't see. 3 seconds. That's all I got. 3 seconds of my daughter recognizing that her father existed. Chase was watching my face, reading the pain. Enjoying it. "Time to go, Frank. Don't make this ugly." I looked at him one final time. Memorized his expression. The satisfaction. The contempt. The absolute certainty that he had won. "You're right," I said. "It's time." I turned and walked. Not toward the road. Not toward my truck. Up. Toward the hill. The same hill where Marco first stood in 1952 and decided this valley would hold his family's future. The hill where Rosa and I watched our first harvest sunset. The hill that overlooked everything. Chase called after me. "Where are you going?" "Frank." "Hey." But he didn't follow. Too many guests arriving. Too much performance to maintain. The groom couldn't be seen chasing an old man up a hill on his wedding day. I climbed steadily. My knees ached. My chest was tight. But my hands were steady. At the top, the valley spread below me like a painting. The entire vineyard visible. Every row, every chair, every guest. The arbor. The flowers. My land. I set the tripod on a flat stone. Mounted my phone. Angled it to capture the panoramic view below. Connected the portable charger. Checked the signal. Strong. Steady. I called Victor. He answered immediately. "I'm in position," I said. "Diane just pulled up. She's walking toward you now." I heard her before I saw her. Footsteps on dry grass. Then her voice behind me. Calm. Resolute. 12 hours of driving and a 5-year wait to face the man who destroyed her life. "Is it time?" Diane asked. I looked down at the vineyard. The string quartet had begun playing. Guests were settling into chairs. In minutes, my daughter would walk toward that arbor on someone else's arm. "It's time," I said. I opened the app. Typed the title, "The Truth About Chase Kingsley." Selected Go Live. The red light blinked. The counter started. 100. 300. 500. Climbing. Below us, the ceremony began. The red light blinked steady on my phone. The counter in the corner of the screen read 642. 642 people watching a 67-year-old man standing on a hilltop in Napa Valley on a Saturday afternoon in November. I looked into the camera. Below me, 200 guests sat in white chairs between my grandfather's vine rows. A string quartet played something classical. My daughter was about to walk down an aisle on land that had been in my family since 1952, and I was up here, on the outside, broadcasting to strangers. I took one breath. Then I began. My name is Frank Moretti. I'm 67 years old. I'm a third-generation vineyard owner here in Napa Valley. And right now, behind me, my daughter Isabella is getting married on my family's land to a man named Chase Kingsley. I paused. Let the words settle. I was not invited to this wedding. I was banned from my own property by a hired security guard. The reason I'm standing on this hill instead of walking my daughter down the aisle is because Chase Kingsley has spent the last 8 months convincing her that I'm mentally unstable, that I'm paranoid, that I'm a danger to myself and others. The counter climbed. 800. 1,000. 1,200. I'm not unstable. I'm not paranoid. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why Chase Kingsley didn't want me at this wedding. I tapped the share screen button. The first document filled the frame. The purchase agreement filed with Napa County. This is a signed contract filed on August 29th of this year. It shows the sale of Moretti Vineyards, 45 acres on the Silverado Trail, to a company called Pacific Crest Hospitality Group for $4.7 million. The seller listed is my daughter, Isabella Moretti. I let the document sit on screen for 10 seconds. Let people read it. My daughter did not sign this contract. She didn't know it existed until I tried to show her, at which point I was told I was delusional. I switched to the next document. Margaret Chen's handwriting analysis. 2 signatures, side by side. This is a forensic comparison conducted by Margaret Chen, a certified handwriting examiner in San Francisco. The signature on the left is my daughter's authentic signature from a deed transfer in 2020. The signature on the right is from the Pacific Crest contract. They were not written by the same hand. Someone forged my daughter's name to sell her family's vineyard. The viewer count hit 3,000. Comments began scrolling faster than I could read. I didn't try. I stayed focused. Now, who is Pacific Crest Hospitality Group? I pulled up the LLC registration. Registered 6 months ago in Henderson, Nevada. A shell company. Its sole listed member is another company called Kingsley Capital Partners, also registered in Nevada. And the agent of record for Kingsley Capital Partners is Chase A. Kingsley. The man marrying my daughter right now, 200 feet below where I'm standing. 5,000 viewers. 6,000. The counter was accelerating. Someone shared the stream. Then, someone else. The algorithm was picking it up. Chase Kingsley is not who he says he is. His birth name is Chase Allen Kessler. Born in Plano, Texas, in 1992. He legally changed his name in 2018 after filing for bankruptcy in Harris County, Texas. Total discharge debt, $890,000. A failed real estate scheme that defrauded 12 investors. I shared the bankruptcy filing. Highlighted the numbers. Let them speak. He has also operated under the name Chase Andrew Kent in Arizona, where his real estate license was suspended in 2022 for fraudulent misrepresentation. He has registered 4 separate limited liability companies across 4 states. All dissolved. All left unpaid debts. His total outstanding obligations, including gambling debts across 3 casinos, exceed $1.2 million. 8,000 viewers. 10,000. The comments were a river now. Oh my God, this is happening live at a wedding. Someone call the cops. Is this real? Those are actual court documents. The bride needs to see this now. I glanced down at the vineyard. The ceremony was underway. I could see the officiant at the arbor, guests in their chairs. But something was shifting. Phones were appearing. People leaning toward screens. Whispered conversations breaking the silence of the ceremony. One woman in the third row stood and walked quickly toward the back. Phone pressed to her ear. The stream was reaching them. Someone at the wedding was watching. Or someone who knew someone at the wedding was texting them. The information was leaking downhill, like water finding cracks in stone. 12,000 viewers. 15,000. I want to be clear about something, I said, looking directly into the camera. I tried to handle this privately. In October, I met Chase face to face and offered him a chance to walk away, break the engagement. Leave Napa. No charges. No public exposure. He refused. He told me, and I quote, "Bella is mine. The vineyard is mine. You're just a senile old man, standing in the way of progress." He then tore up the evidence I had presented and told me my grandfather's vines would be bulldozed into a parking lot by Christmas. I paused. Let the silence hold. Below, more phones were out. A cluster of guests near the back were openly looking at screens instead of the ceremony. The string quartet played on, oblivious. After that meeting, Chase retaliated. He posted 9 fake reviews on our Yelp page to damage our business. He contacted Adult Protective Services with a false report about my well-being. He arranged a staged intervention at a restaurant where a nurse he hired told me my concerns were symptoms of cognitive decline. I steadied my voice. And on October 23rd, someone sprayed concentrated herbicide on 2 rows of our oldest Cabernet vines. 73-year-old plants that my grandfather Marco Moretti brought as cuttings from Sicily in 1952. They're dead. Irreplaceable. 18,000 viewers. The comments were unanimous now. Furious. Demanding action. Tagging news stations. Sharing the stream across platforms. But I'm not the only person Chase Kingsley has done this to. I turned slightly. Looked at the woman standing just outside the frame. She met my eyes. Nodded once. Steady. Resolved. 5 years ago, in Colorado, Chase used a different name to enter the life of another woman who owned family land. He took everything from her. Her property. Her savings. Her sense of self. She nearly didn't survive. I stepped to the side. The camera angle shifted to include the woman beside me. Golden afternoon light fell across her face. She was 35. Dark hair. Steady eyes. Hands clasped in front of her. The posture of someone who had spent 5 years preparing for this moment without knowing it would come. Her name is Diane Prescott. And she drove 700 miles to stand on this hill today, because she doesn't want what happened to her to happen to my daughter. I looked at Diane. Whenever you're ready. She stepped forward, looked into the camera, and when she spoke, her voice didn't waver. My name is Diane Prescott, and I'm here to tell you the truth about the man standing at that altar. Diane Prescott stood in the golden November light and looked into the camera with the steadiness of someone who had already survived the worst thing that could happen to her. 5 years ago, she began. I owned a cattle ranch outside Fort Collins, Colorado. 160 acres. My great-grandfather homesteaded that land in 1912. 4 generations of Prescotts were born there, raised there, buried there. It was everything my family had. Her voice was clear, unhurried. She had practiced this, but not in the way Chase practiced. Not performance. Preparation. The way you prepare to testify. The way you prepare to face something you've been running from. In the spring of 2020, I met a man at a Ranchers Association event in Denver. He introduced himself as Chase Kent. He said he was a real estate investor, specializing in agricultural properties. He was charming, knowledgeable. He seemed to understand the value of legacy land. 20,000 viewers. The counter was climbing in jumps now. hundreds at a time. Within 3 months, he had moved in. Within 5, he convinced me to add his company, Mountain Creek Ventures, to the deed for what he called tax optimization purposes. I trusted him. I loved him. I thought we were building a future. She paused, swallowed once, continued. By month 8, he had leveraged that partial ownership to take out a loan of $2.8 million against my ranch's value. The money went into accounts I never had access to. When I discovered the loan and confronted him, he told me I was confused, that I had agreed to everything, that I was being paranoid and irrational. I watched the comments scrolling. People were connecting the pattern in real time. Same playbook: isolation, gaslighting, financial theft. This is exactly what he's doing to the daughter. Someone tagged the Napa County Sheriff. How is this man not in prison? Diane shared her screen. A bank transfer receipt appeared. $2.8 million. Chase Kent listed as the authorized borrower. The ranch's legal description as collateral. He disappeared 3 weeks after I found out. Left the state. Left me with a debt I couldn't pay. I lost the ranch in foreclosure 7 months later. 160 acres. 4 generations. Gone because I trusted the wrong man. 24,000 viewers. Below us, the wedding had stalled. The officiants stood at the arbor looking uncertain. Half the guests were openly on their phones. Several had stood up. The firstins. A woman was crying near the 3rd row. The string quartet had stopped playing. Diane's voice steadied. 3 months after losing the ranch, I tried to end my life. My neighbor Carolyn found me. Called 911. I spent 14 days in a psychiatric facility trying to remember why I should keep breathing. Silence on the hill. Just the wind through dry grass and Diane's voice carrying out to 26,000 people. I'm telling you this because the man down there at that altar is the same man who destroyed my life. Different name. Same pattern. Same tactics. Isolation. Gaslighting. Financial fraud. And if Isabella Moretti marries him today, she will lose everything her family built. The same way I lost mine. She looked directly into the camera. Isabella, if you're watching this, please listen to me. It's not your fault. You're not crazy. Your father is not unstable. Everything he's been telling you is true. I know because I lived it. And I almost didn't survive. 28,000 viewers. Then movement below. A figure in white breaking away from the arbor. Not Bella. Chase. His tuxedo jacket was unbuttoned. His posture had changed. The composed, confident groom was gone. In his place, something frantic. He was looking at his phone, looking at the hill, looking at the guests who were now openly staring at him instead of the ceremony. He started running, up the path that wound along the eastern edge of the property, past the Merlot block, past the old equipment shed, toward the hill, where Diane and I stood with a phone and a camera and 30,000 witnesses. I heard him before I saw him. Heavy breathing, shoes sliding on dry earth. Then he crested the hill, face flushed red, veins visible in his neck. He stopped 10 feet from us, chest heaving, and looked directly into the camera. Turn that off. His voice cracked. Turn it off right now. This is defamation. This is illegal. I'll sue both of you into the ground. I didn't move. Diane didn't move. The camera kept rolling. 30,000 people watched Chase Kingsley stand on a hilltop in his wedding tuxedo, sweating, shaking, and threatening the 2 people who had just exposed his entire history. Chase, I said calmly, you're on camera. 30,000 people are watching. If what we've said is false, you should be able to explain it. This is an ambush. A setup. You planned this. Then explain the contract. My voice didn't rise. Explain why Pacific Crest Hospitality Group, registered to your name, has a purchase agreement for this vineyard with my daughter's forged signature. That's not I didn't, he was sputtering. The smooth operator. The man who had controlled every conversation for 8 months couldn't form a complete sentence. Explain Diane's ranch. I continued. $2.8 million. Mountain Creek Ventures. Your company. Your name on the loan documents. She's lying. He pointed at Diane. His hand was shaking. You're a liar. You're both liars. Diane spoke. Quietly. Without anger. Chase. I have the bank receipts. The loan documents. The foreclosure notice. Your signature is on all of them. You used the name Kent, but your social security number matches. Chase's mask shattered completely. His face contorted. You don't know what it's like. You don't understand the pressure. I had debts. I had people coming after me. I didn't have a choice. 30,000 people heard him say that. Not a denial. An excuse. A confession. Dressed as justification. Bella. He turned toward the vineyard below. Toward the guests who were now standing, watching him on the hill. Bella, don't listen to them. Bella, I love you. This isn't what it looks like. I looked at Diane. She looked at me. Neither of us needed to say anything else. Chase was doing our work for us. Every word out of his mouth. Every frantic gesture. Every crack in his composure. Confirmed everything we had presented. Then sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Victor had called the Napa County Sheriff 20 minutes ago. 2 patrol cars appeared on the Silverado Trail, lights flashing. They pulled onto the gravel access road and stopped near the gate. Chase heard them. His face went white. He looked at me. At Diane. At the camera still recording. At the officers emerging from their vehicles below. No, he said. No, this isn't Chase Allen Kessler. I said. That's the name on the warrant. Wire fraud. Forgery. Interstate fraud. Elena filed the complaint with the district attorney yesterday. The warrant was issued this morning. 2 officers climbed the hill. Professional. Calm. One spoke into his radio. The other approached Chase with handcuffs visible on his belt. Chase Kingsley? The officer asked. Also known as Chase Kessler? Also known as Chase Kent? Chase didn't answer. He stood frozen. The tuxedo. The boutonniere. The polished shoes. All of it. Meaningless now. Sir, you're under arrest. Please. Turn around. And place your hands behind your back. They cuffed him on the hilltop. 30,000 people watched. The comments were a wall of text, moving faster than anyone could read. Below us, 200 wedding guests stood in silence, watching the groom being led down the hill in handcuffs. But I wasn't looking at Chase anymore. I was looking at the vineyard below. At the figure standing alone near the arbor in a white dress. Phone in her hand. Tears streaming down her face. Her bridesmaids had stepped back. The guests had cleared a space around her. She stood alone in the center of it all, watching the live stream on her screen. Then she looked up, past the guests, past the arbor, up the hill, to where I stood. Our eyes met across 200 feet of vineyard in 8 months of silence. This time, she didn't look away. I ended the live stream at 4:27 in the afternoon. 31,000 viewers at peak. I didn't say goodbye to the audience. I didn't make a speech. I simply looked into the camera one last time and said, Bella, I love you. I'm here. Whenever you're ready. Then I pressed stop. Diane and I walked down the hill together. The vineyard below was emptying. Guests moved toward their cars in small clusters, conversations hushed, phones still in hands. Catering staff stood uncertainly beside untouched champagne towers. The string quartet had packed their instruments. The arbor stood empty, flowers still draped across it, waiting for a ceremony that would never be completed. I drove Diane back to her hotel in Street Helena. She was quiet for most of the drive. At the hotel parking lot, she turned to me. I hope she comes home tonight, she said. So do we. She will. Diane opened the door, then paused. When she does, don't ask her to explain. Don't ask her why it took so long. Just let her be home. I nodded. Diane knew. She had been Bella once. A woman waking up from a manipulation so complete that the ground beneath her felt like it could dissolve at any moment. I drove home. Parked in my driveway. Sat in the truck for 10 minutes staring at the house. The house Marco built. The house Rosa filled with pasta and laughter and the smell of fermenting grapes in autumn. The house where Bella took her first steps across the kitchen floor while I counted out loud and Rosa filmed on a camcorder. I went inside. Changed out of my suit. Made a pot of coffee I didn't drink. Sat at the kitchen table with the lights off. Listening to the house settle around me. 7 o'clock. Nothing. 8 o'clock. The valley darkened outside. 9. The clock in the hallway ticked louder than it should have. 10. I told myself to go to bed. I didn't move. At 11:07. The doorbell rang. My heart hit my ribcage so hard, I felt it in my throat. I crossed the kitchen. Walked through the dark hallway. Reached the front door. And opened it. Bella stood on the porch. Still in her wedding dress. White lace crumpled and stained with dirt at the hem where she had walked through the vineyard. Her hair had come undone, dark strands falling across her face. Her eyes were swollen. Red. Devastated, she looked at me. And whatever was holding her together came apart. Dad. The word broke in half coming out of her. I'm so sorry. I opened my arms. She collapsed into them. Not gracefully, not gently. She crumbled, her full weight against my chest, her face buried in my shoulder. Sobs so deep, they shook both of us. I held her the way I had when she was 6 years old, and afraid of thunderstorms. One hand on her back, the other cradling her head. My chin resting on top of her hair. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to fix in that moment. Nothing to explain. Nothing to prove. My daughter had come home. That was everything. We stood in the doorway for a long time. Her crying eventually softened from sobs, to shaking breaths, to something quieter. A settling. The way the earth goes, still, after a tremor. Come inside, I finally said. She let me lead her to the couch. I brought a blanket, a glass of water. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, still in the white dress, and stared at the floor. I sat across from her in Rosa's old armchair and waited. I watched the stream, she whispered. I watched Diane. I saw her face when she talked about losing everything, and I recognized it. The same look I've been wearing for months without knowing it. I didn't speak, just listened. He told me you were sick, that you were paranoid, delusional. He showed me those reviews and said people were worried. He brought Karen to that dinner, and she used words like fixed beliefs and cognitive decline. And her voice cracked. I believed him. Over you, my own father. He's very good at what he does, I said. You're not the first person he convinced. I should have trusted you. Tears again. Quieter now. The kind that come from deep exhaustion rather than fresh pain. You've never lied to me. Not once in 29 years. And I chose him. You loved him. Love makes us vulnerable. It's not a weakness. She looked up at me. In the lamplight, she looked so much like Rosa that my chest ached. The same dark eyes, the same way of tilting her head when she was trying to understand something painful. How did you keep fighting? She asked. When I pushed you away. When I uninvited you. When I called you unstable. How did you not give up? I thought about it. Not for the answer, but for the right words. Because you're my daughter. Because your mother made me promise. Because love doesn't have a limit on patience. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. I want to come home. You are home. This has always been your home. Neither of us slept much that night. She took her old room. I heard her crying through the wall at 2 in the morning. By 3, silence. By 5, I was awake and in the kitchen. At 6:30, I heard footsteps. Bella appeared in the doorway, wearing an old sweatshirt she had left in her closet years ago. Hair damp from a shower. Face raw and clean. No makeup, no pretense. "I want to cook," she said. "Pasta. Mom's recipe. I know it's not Saturday, but I want to." "It's always Saturday when you're home," I said. She smiled. Small. Fragile. But real. The first real smile I had seen from her in 8 months. We cooked together, side by side at the stove. She chopped tomatoes. I diced eggplant. Neither of us spoke much. The rhythm of the kitchen filled the silence. Oil heating in the pan. Garlic sizzling. The domestic music of a family finding its way back to center. Over breakfast, the practical world began to reassemble itself. Victor called at 8. I put him on speaker. "The contract is void," he said. Forged signature, no independent legal counsel, no evidence Bella was aware of or consented to the agreement. "I'll file the paperwork Monday. The vineyard is safe," Bella exhaled. A sound that carried 8 months of tension releasing from her body. "What about Chase?" she asked. "Arraignment Monday morning. Federal wire fraud. Forgery. Interstate fraud. Based on the live stream and Diane's testimony, bail is unlikely. He's looking at significant time." "Bella." She nodded. Stared at her plate. "Okay." After Victor hung up, she looked at me. "Can I stay?" "Here. At the vineyard. For as long as I need to figure things out." I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. "Sweetheart, this is your vineyard. Your name is on the deed. Your grandmother planted the Chardonnay block. Your mother sealed a barrel of wine for you in the cellar. This land has been waiting for you to come back to it." Tears again. But different this time. Not grief. Not shame. Relief. "There's something else," I said. "Something I've been keeping for you. Something your mother left. But it can wait until you're ready." She looked at me, curious through the exhaustion. "What is it?" "A promise I made 9 years ago. I'll show you when the time is right." The Saturday after Bella came home, I woke before dawn and lay in bed listening to the house breathe. For 8 years I had kept a promise to a woman who could no longer remind me of it. Today, I would fulfill it. Bella was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, 2 mugs of coffee on the counter, steam curling toward the ceiling. She wore one of Rosa's old flannel shirts, the sleeves rolled twice at the wrists. She didn't ask where we were going. I think she already knew something was waiting. "There's something your mother left for you," I said. "It's in the cellar." She set her mug down slowly. "How long have you kept it?" "Since the day she died." We walked through the vineyard in the gray morning light, past the rows I had replanted, past the empty stakes where the 73-year-old vines once stood before Chase poisoned them. The cellar door was oak, iron-hinged, built by my father in 1968. I pulled it open and the cool air rose to meet us, carrying the smell of aged wood and sleeping wine. The cellar held 42 barrels in neat rows, each labeled in my hand or Rosa's. But in the far corner, separated from the others by 3 feet of empty stone floor, sat a single 60-gallon French oak barrel. Rosa's handwriting on the face read, "Bella, wedding day. With all my love." Bella stopped walking. Her hand found my arm and squeezed. She sealed it. "October 14th, 2017, I said. The morning of the day she died. 65-year-old vines, the same Sicilian cuttings your grandfather brought from Palermo. She said the wine needed 8 years. She said, you'd be ready by then." Bella knelt beside the barrel, running her fingers over her mother's words. The ink had faded slightly, but remained legible, protected by the cellar's constant temperature. I handed her the bung tool. She looked at me. uncertain. It's yours, I said. It's always been yours. She pulled the bung carefully. Inside, wedged against the oak, sat a sealed envelope wrapped in wax cloth. Rosa had tucked it there 9 years ago, knowing the wine would protect the paper, knowing I would never open the barrel without Bella beside me. Bella unwrapped the cloth with trembling hands. The envelope was cream-colored, Rosa's initials embossed on the back. She opened it and unfolded a single page of Rosa's handwriting. The same looping cursive I had watched for 31 years of marriage. She read aloud, "My beautiful Bella, if you're reading this, then 2 things are true. You are about to share your life with someone you love, and your father kept his promise. I knew he would. I am writing this on the morning of October 14th, and the sun is coming through the east window the way it always does in autumn. I sealed this wine for you because I wanted to give you something that took patience, something that grew better with silence and darkness and time. That is what love does. It does not rush. It does not demand proof. It waits. Your father will wait for you no matter what. Trust that. Trust him. And trust yourself enough to know when something is real. I love you more than any wine I ever made. Mom." Bella folded the letter against her chest and wept. I put my arm around her shoulders and said nothing. Some silences carry more than any sentence. After a while, she wiped her face and laughed softly. She always had to get the last word. I smiled. She earned it. We drew the wine together using a glass thief, filling 2 stemless glasses Rosa had bought at a Sonoma flea market in 2012. The color was deep garnet with a narrow brick-red rim, the sign of patient aging. I swirled and inhaled. Black cherry, dried violet, espresso, a whisper of tobacco. Bella tasted first. Her eyes closed. "It's her," she whispered. "It's completely her." We sat on the stone floor of the cellar, backs against the cool wall, drinking Rosa's final vintage in small sips. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The wine was extraordinarily structured, layered, alive with a finish that lingered 30 seconds. Rosa's masterpiece, made from vines that no longer existed above us. "To the women who plant what they'll never harvest," I said, raising my glass. Bella touched hers to mine. "To Mom." That evening, Victor called with the legal update. The marriage had been declared void ab initio, as if it never existed. Chase's federal charges now included wire fraud, identity theft, and interstate fraud. The prosecutor estimated a minimum 5-year sentence, possibly 7 with the forgery enhancements. The vineyard deed remained solely in my name, the forged contract thrown out entirely. Bella listened from the kitchen doorway, drying a plate with a towel. When I hung up, she said, "I started looking at therapists today. Someone who specializes in coercive control." "Good," I said. "And Dad?" "In the spring, I want to replant those 2 rows. The ones he killed." She paused. "New cuttings from the same rootstock. If any survived in the nursery block." I thought of my father, Marco, arriving in Napa in 1952 with $800 and a suitcase of Sicilian vine cuttings. I thought of Rosa kneeling in the dirt, teaching Bella to prune at age 7. I thought of the 73-year-old roots poisoned by a man who couldn't tell Merlot from Cabernet. "The nursery block has 6 mother vines," I said. "Same genetics. We can graft in March." Bella nodded. "New roots," she said. "Same soil." March came to Napa Valley the way it always does, quietly, with mustard flowers blooming yellow between the rows and the morning fog lifting an hour earlier each week. I stood at the edge of the east block, the same 2 rows Chase had poisoned 5 months earlier, and watched Bella kneel in the dirt with a grafting knife. She worked carefully, splitting the rootstock with a clean vertical cut, inserting the scion wood we had taken from the nursery block's 6 surviving mother vines. Her hands were steady. She wrapped the graft union with parafilm, pressed soil around the base, and moved to the next stake. 32 new vines to replace 32 dead ones. Same Sicilian genetics my father brought from Palermo in 1952. Different generation. Same soil. Grandpa Marco would be proud, she said without looking up. He'd say you're working too slow, I replied. She laughed. It was the first full laugh I had heard from her since before Chase. Not polite. Not forced. Real. Victor had finalized everything in February. The federal case moved faster than expected. Chase Allen Kessler, his birth name, confirmed by Texas vital records, pleaded guilty to 3 counts: wire fraud, interstate fraud, and identity theft. The judge in the Northern District of California sentenced him to 6 years and 8 months, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Restitution totaled $1.4 million, split between Diane Prescott, myself, and 2 other victims identified during the FBI's expanded investigation. His Nevada LLCs were dissolved permanently. His name now appeared on a federal fraud registry. Diane called me the day after sentencing. Her voice sounded different, lighter, unburdened. She said the restitution wouldn't bring back her ranch, but knowing he couldn't do this to another family gave her something money couldn't buy. She had started volunteering full-time at a Denver nonprofit, helping fraud victims navigate the legal system. We agreed to stay in touch. Bella's recovery was not a single moment. It was a series of small returns. In January, she resumed Saturday dinners, just the 2 of us. Pasta and a bottle from the cellar. 6 o'clock sharp. In February, she enrolled in a coercive control therapy program, meeting twice weekly with a specialist in Street Helena. She told me once, after a session, that the hardest part wasn't anger at Chase. It was forgiving herself for not seeing it sooner. You couldn't see it, I told her. That's what he was designed to prevent. She nodded slowly. My therapist says the same thing. But hearing it from you matters more. By March, she had returned to work at the vineyard full-time, managing the tasting room, rebuilding distributor relationships, and redesigning our label for the 2026 vintage. The Yelp reviews had been removed after Victor filed a defamation claim supported by the digital forensics tracing each post to Chase's device. Our rating climbed back to 4.7 within 2 months. Pacific Wine Merchants, the first distributor to drop us, was also the first to call back. I let Bella handle that negotiation. She secured better terms than we had before. On the first Saturday of April, Bella invited Victor and Elena to dinner. We cooked together Rosa's braised short ribs, the recipe Bella and I had perfected over 8 years of practice. Elena brought a bottle of Argentinian Malbec and a card that read, "To the Moretis, may your next chapter be boring." We all laughed. After dinner, Bella and I walked through the vineyard in the dark. The new grafts had taken. Tiny green shoots, no longer than a fingernail, emerged from the parafilm wraps. In 3 years they would bear fruit. In 5, they would produce wine worthy of bottling. In 10, they would be indistinguishable from the vines that surrounded them. "Dad," Bella said, stopping between the rows. "I've been thinking about something. Tell me. I want to start speaking publicly. About what happened. About how isolation works. How financial fraud hides inside romantic relationships." She paused. Elena connected me with a victims advocacy group in Sacramento. They asked if I'd share my story at their spring conference. I looked at my daughter in the moonlight, 29 years old. Standing in soil her great-grandfather first turned 74 years ago. Wearing her mother's flannel shirt, holding a grafting knife she had learned to use that morning. She was not the same woman who had come home in a wedding dress 5 months earlier. She was not the woman Chase had tried to create. She was becoming someone new, rooted in the same ground. "Your mother would say yes before you finished the sentence," I said. Bella smiled. "Then yes." We walked back toward the house, past the cellar, where Rosa's empty barrel still sat, with the letter tucked back inside. Past the gate my grandfather forged in 1954, past the hill where 28,000 strangers once watched me fight for my family. The vineyard was quiet. The porch light was on. I am 67 years old. I have lost my wife, nearly lost my daughter, and watched a man try to steal 74 years of my family's work. But tonight the house smells like Rosa's short ribs. The new vines are growing, and my daughter is home. Some promises take 9 years to keep. This one was worth every single day. If you're watching this, and something feels wrong in your relationship, if someone is isolating you from your family, controlling your finances, or making you doubt your own memory, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone. And if you're a parent watching your child disappear into someone else's control, don't give up. Build your case. Be patient. And when the time comes, tell the truth so loud that no one can look away. Thank you for listening. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.